Have you ever wondered what happens to the passengers who vanish without a trace on cruise ships? Dive into the chilling stories of real-life disappearances and explore the unsettling theories surrounding these mysteries. Imagine boarding a luxurious cruise ship, only to find yourself surrounded by unsettling rumors of disappearances. We'll uncover the unsettling truth behind these unexplained events and the chilling possibilities that haunt these seemingly carefree voyages. The vast expanse of ocean stretches endlessly beyond the horizon, its deep blue waters holding secrets that may never surface. Somewhere within this maritime wilderness, floating cities of steel and glass carry thousands of passengers across the world's waterways, promising adventure, relaxation, and memories to last a lifetime. Yet beneath the glittering facade of modern cruise ships lies a darker reality, one that families across the globe know all too well. Every year, people board these magnificent vessels with hearts full of anticipation, only to vanish without explanation somewhere between departure and destination. Their stories become whispers in the wind, their faces frozen in time on missing person posters, their loved ones left to navigate an ocean of grief and unanswered questions. These disappearances represent more than mere statistics in maritime record. They are human tragedies that ripple through families and communities, leaving behind a wake of devastation that no amount of investigation can fully heal. Behind each case lies a person with dreams, relationships, and a future that was suddenly, inexplicably cut short. The phenomenon of cruise ship disappearances has captured public imagination precisely because it touches upon our deepest fears about the unknown. When someone vanishes on land, there are usually traces, witnesses, surveillance footage, physical evidence, but the ocean is different. It is vast, unforgiving, and capable of swallowing evidence as easily as it swallows the setting sun. What makes these cases particularly haunting is their seeming impossibility. How does a person simply disappear from a controlled environment, surrounded by hundreds or thousands of other passengers and crew members? How do security systems fail to capture the moment of vanishing? How do investigations reach dead ends in spaces that are theoretically contained and monitored? These questions have driven families to spend their life savings on private investigators, prompted congressional hearings, and inspired countless theories ranging from the plausible to the fantastic. They have also revealed troubling gaps in maritime security, international jurisdiction, and the duty of care that cruise lines owe to their passengers. The emotional toll of these disappearances extends far beyond the immediate families affected. Fellow passengers who witness the search efforts carry the weight of that experience for years. Crew members who participated in rescue operations struggle with feelings of helplessness and failure. Even those who merely read about these cases in the news find themselves looking over the railings during their own cruise vacations, wondering what secrets the dark water below might hold. This investigation delves deep into the world of unexplained cruise ship disappearances, examining not just the facts and theories surrounding these cases, but the profound human impact they leave in their wake. We will explore the historical context that has shaped our understanding of these incidents, analyze specific cases that have baffled investigators, and examine the various explanations that have been proposed. More importantly, we will give voice to the families who refuse to let their loved ones be forgotten, who continue to fight for answers and accountability in a system that often seems designed to minimize liability rather than maximize truth. Their courage in the face of institutional indifference serves as a beacon of hope for others who find themselves navigating similar circumstances. The ocean may be vast and its secrets well guarded, but the human spirit's capacity for love, determination, and the pursuit of justice is equally boundless. In examining these disappearances, we honor not only those who have vanished but also those who continue to search for them, refusing to let the waves wash away their memory or their quest for answer. The story of unexplained disappearances at sea begins long before the era of modern cruise ships. But it was the advent of passenger ocean travel that first brought these mysteries into public consciousness. The maritime world has always been fraught with danger, But the nature of that danger evolved as ships grew larger and more sophisticated. In the early days of ocean travel, disappearances were often attributed to the harsh realities of sea life. Storms, accidents, or the simple fact that safety measures were primitive by today's standards. However, as ships became more secure and travel conditions improved, the mystery of why people continued to vanish became more pronounced and troubling. The year 1911 marked what many maritime historians consider the first well-documented case of an unexplained passenger disappearance on a luxury ocean liner. The SS City of Paris, a magnificent vessel representing the pinnacle of early 20th century maritime engineering, was making its routine transatlantic crossing when a passenger simply vanished. The missing individual was Margaret Whitmore, a 34-year-old school teacher from Boston, who had saved for 3 years to afford her dream trip to Europe. Margaret was traveling alone, which was considered quite adventurous for a woman of her era. She had been seen at dinner on the third night of the voyage, engaging in pleasant conversation with fellow passengers about her excitement to see the museums of Paris. When Margaret failed to appear for breakfast the following morning, her table mates initially assumed she was suffering from seasickness. It wasn't until she missed lunch and dinner that concern began to mount. A search of her cabin revealed her belongings undisturbed, her bed unslept in, and her evening gown laid out as if she intended to change for dinner. The ship's crew conducted a thorough search of every accessible area of the vessel. They questioned passengers and staff, examined the safety rails for any signs of damage or disturbance, and even lowered boats to search the waters around the ship's probable course during the night. No trace of Margaret was ever found. What made Margaret's disappearance particularly puzzling was the lack of any apparent motive for self-harm. Her letters home, discovered in her cabin, spoke enthusiastically of her travel plans and her intention to document her experiences for her students back in Boston. She had withdrawn a substantial sum of money for her trip and had made detailed arrangements for her return, including hiring a substitute teacher to cover her classes. The crew interviewed passengers who had spoken with Margaret during the voyage. All described her as cheerful, excited about her journey, and looking forward to reaching port. There were no reports of her seeming distressed, ill, or behaving unusually in any way. She had not been drinking excessively, nor had she been seen in the company of any passenger or crew member who might have posed a threat. The ship's captain, James Morrison, was deeply affected by the incident. In his official report, he wrote that in 30 years at sea he had never encountered such a bewildering case. The SS City of Paris was equipped with the latest safety features of its time, including higher railings than many vessels and improved lighting on the deck. Yet somehow Margaret Whitmore had vanished as completely as if she had never boarded the ship at all. The case attracted significant attention in the press on both sides of the Atlantic. Margaret's disappearance became a topic of dinner party conversation and newspaper speculation. Some suggested she might have been the victim of foul play, though no evidence supported this theory. Others proposed that she might have staged her own disappearance, though her financial situation and personal circumstances made this seem unlikely. Margaret's family hired private investigators who met the ship when it docked in Southampton. They interviewed every passenger and crew member who would speak with them, but learned nothing new. Margaret's sister, Ruth, traveled to Europe to continue the search, visiting hospitals and morgues in port cities along the ship's route, hoping against hope that Margaret might have somehow survived and been rescued by another vessel. The investigation into Margaret's disappearance revealed troubling gaps in the ship's security and record-keeping procedures. There was no systematic way to account for passengers during the voyage. No regular roll calls or mandatory safety briefing. Passengers were free to move about the ship largely unmonitored, and there were numerous areas where someone could potentially go overboard without being observed. This case became a catalyst for the first discussions about passenger safety protocols on ocean liner. The tragedy of Margaret Whitmore forced the maritime industry to confront the reality that their beautiful floating palaces could also become scenes of inexplicable loss. The emotional impact on Margaret's family was devastating and long-lasting. Her sister Ruth never married, devoting her life instead to caring for their aging parents and keeping Margaret's memory alive. Ruth established a small scholarship fund for female teachers who wanted to travel abroad, ensuring that other women could pursue the dreams that Margaret never lived to fulfill. Ruth kept a detailed correspondence with other families who had experienced similar losses in subsequent years. These letters, preserved in the Boston Public Library archives, provide a poignant window into the unique grief experienced by those whose loved ones vanish without trace. Ruth wrote eloquently about the particular agony of not knowing, of being unable to mourn properly because hope and despair existed in equal measure. The SS City of Paris case established many of the patterns that would become familiar in later cruise ship disappearances. The lack of witnesses, the absence of physical evidence, the seemingly impossible nature of the vanishing, and the devastating impact on families left behind. It also highlighted the challenges faced by investigators in maritime environments, where jurisdiction is complex and evidence can literally disappear into the vast ocean. Margaret Whitmore's disappearance remains officially unsolved to this day. Her case files, stored in maritime archives in both the United States and the United Kingdom, consists of dozens of witness statements, crew reports, and investigative documents that collectively paint a picture of a woman who seemed to simply step out of existence during a peaceful night at sea. Following the SS City of Paris incident, the maritime industry began to take notice of passenger disappearances in a way it never had before. What emerged was a disturbing pattern that challenged conventional understanding of shipboard safety and security. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, as ocean travel became more popular and accessible, reports of mysterious disappearances began to accumulate. Each case shared certain characteristics: passengers who vanished without apparent reason, thorough searches that yielded no results, and investigations that raised more questions than they answered. The luxury liner SS Mauritania recorded 3 separate disappearances between. In each case, passengers had been seen socializing in the ship's common areas before retiring to their cabins, only to be found missing the following morning. The ship's security protocols were upgraded after each incident, yet the disappearances continued. What particularly troubled maritime officials was the fact that these incidents were occurring on the most prestigious and well-staffed vessels of the day. These were not cargo ships with minimal crew and basic accommodations, but luxury liners with high passenger-to-crew ratios and sophisticated safety equipment for their time. Edmund Hartley, a psychiatrist who sailed regularly on these vessels while conducting research on the psychological effects of ocean travel, began documenting what he observed. His notes, published posthumously in 1955, provided insights into the unique mental state that ocean travel could induce in passengers. Hartley wrote extensively about the disorienting effect of being surrounded by endless water, the way that normal time perception could become altered during long voyages, and the psychological impact of being temporarily severed from one's normal life and responsibility. He theorized that some disappearances might be the result of what he termed maritime dissociation, a psychological state in which individuals might act in ways completely contrary to their normal behavior patterns. However, Hartley's theories, while intriguing, could not account for the complete absence of evidence in these cases. Even if passengers were acting under some form of psychological distress, there should have been witnesses, physical traces, or other indicators of their final moments aboard the ship. The period between the World Wars saw the emergence of the first conspiracy theories surrounding cruise ship disappearances. Some suggested that passengers were being deliberately targeted by criminal organizations operating within the cruise industry. Others proposed that certain shipping lines were covering up accidents or incidents of negligence that resulted in passenger deaths. These theories gained traction partly because of the secretive way that many shipping companies handled disappearance investigation. Families often found themselves shut out of the investigative process, with company representatives providing minimal information and discouraging media attention. This lack of transparency fueled suspicion and speculation. One particularly troubling case from this era involved the disappearance of an entire family from the RMS Berengaria in The Caldwell family, parents Henry and Dorothy, along with their twin daughters, ages 16, had boarded the ship in New York bound for Southampton. They were seen at dinner on the second night of the voyage, appearing happy and excited about their European vacation. The next morning, all 4 family members were missing from their adjoining cabins. Their belongings remained undisturbed, their beds unslept in, The ship was searched from bow to stern, but no trace of the Caldwells was ever found. The case attracted international attention and prompted the first congressional hearings on passenger safety aboard ocean liners. What made the Caldwell case particularly baffling was the sheer improbability of 4 people disappearing simultaneously without anyone noticing. The family had been well liked by their fellow passengers and had made plans to meet other travelers for breakfast the morning they were discovered missing. There was no evidence of financial troubles, marital problems, or any other circumstance that might explain such a dramatic and coordinated disappearance. The investigation into the Caldwell case revealed significant deficiencies in record-keeping and security aboard passenger ship. There was no systematic way to verify that passengers were in their cabins at night, no regular safety checks, and no procedures for tracking passenger movements throughout the ship. The emotional testimony of extended family members during the congressional hearings provided a human face to these maritime mysteries. Dorothy Caldwell's sister, speaking through tears, described the unique torment of not knowing what had happened to her loved one. She spoke of the cruel hope that kept her awake at night, imagining scenarios in which her sister's family had somehow survived and would eventually be found. These early cases established the template for how cruise ship disappearances would be handled for decades to come. The combination of international waters jurisdiction, corporate liability concerns, and the practical difficulties of conducting investigations at sea created a perfect storm of bureaucratic complexity that often resulted in cases being closed without resolution. The end of World War II brought significant changes to ocean travel, with larger, more sophisticated ships carrying increasing numbers of passengers. The democratization of cruise travel meant that people from all walks of life were now experiencing what had once been the exclusive province of the wealthy. With this expansion came a corresponding increase in the number of reported disappearances. What had once been rare and shocking incidents began to occur with troubling regularity. Maritime authorities found themselves dealing with multiple cases per year, each presenting the same baffling characteristics that had puzzled investigators for decades. The 1950s and 1960s saw the emergence of more systematic approaches to investigating cruise ship disappearances. The International Maritime Organization began collecting data on passenger incidents, and patterns started to emerge from the statistics. Certain routes appeared to have higher rates of disappearances than others. The Caribbean in particular began to develop a reputation as a region where these incidents occurred with unusual frequency. This led to the first geographic analysis of maritime disappearances and the beginning of what would later become known as the Triangle of Bermuda theory of cruise ship vanishings. Sarah Chen, a maritime psychologist who began studying these cases in the 1960s, noticed that many disappearances occurred during specific phases of cruise itineraries. Her research, published in the Journal of Maritime Psychology in 1967, identified what she called transition points in cruise travel, where passengers seemed most vulnerable to whatever factors contributed to these mysterious vanishings. According to Dr. Chen's analysis, disappearances were most likely to occur during the first few days of a cruise, when passengers were still adjusting to shipboard life, or during the final days when the reality of returning to normal life was beginning to set in. This pattern suggested a psychological component to at least some of the disappearances. However, Dr. Chen's research also revealed cases that defied any psychological explanation. These involved passengers who had taken multiple cruises without incident, who disappeared in the middle of voyages during which they had been actively engaged and apparently content, and who left behind evidence of plans and commitments that extended well beyond their cruise vacation. The 1970s brought the first use of modern investigative techniques to cruise ship disappearance cases. Improved communication systems allowed for better coordination between ships and shore-based authorities. Enhanced record-keeping procedures made it easier to track passenger movements and identify potential witnesses. Despite these technological advances, the fundamental mystery of cruise ship disappearances remained unsolved. If anything, better documentation and investigation only served to emphasize how truly inexplicable these cases were. The more thoroughly investigators examined the circumstances surrounding each disappearance, the more impossible they seemed. As cruise travel expanded throughout the latter half of the 20th century, a disturbing pattern began to emerge in the statistical analysis of passenger disappearance. The Caribbean Sea, with its crystal-clear waters and idyllic island destinations, was developing a reputation as the most dangerous region for cruise passengers. The numbers were stark and troubling. While Caribbean cruises represented approximately 35% of all cruise voyages during the 1970s and 1980s, they accounted for nearly 60% of all reported passenger disappearances. This disproportion was so significant that it could not be explained by statistical variation or reporting inconsistency. Maritime safety experts struggled to understand why the Caribbean seemed to be such a hotspot for these mysterious vanishings. The region's weather patterns were generally favorable for cruise travel, with fewer storms and calmer seas than many other cruise destinations. The ships operating in Caribbean waters were among the newest and most technologically advanced in the world's cruise fleets. Dr. Michael Torres, a criminologist who specialized in maritime cases, spent 3 years in the early 1980s studying Caribbean cruise disappearances. His research, funded by a coalition of families who had lost loved ones in the region, attempted to identify common factors that might explain the geographic concentration of these incidents. Dr. Torres discovered several intriguing patterns. Many of the disappearances occurred during specific leg portions of Caribbean itineraries, particularly during overnight passages between islands. The timing of these vanishings often coincided with periods when passengers were likely to be on deck enjoying the warm evening air and tropical scenery. More troubling was Dr. Torres's finding that many Caribbean disappearances involved passengers who had specifically chosen their cruise because of positive experiences on previous voyages. These were not first-time cruisers who might be unfamiliar with shipboard life, but experienced passengers who understood ship operations and safety procedures. The geographic specificity of Caribbean disappearances led to the development of what media outlets began calling the Bermuda Triangle of the Seas theory. This concept, while not scientifically rigorous, captured public imagination and reflected genuine concern about the unusual concentration of incidents in the region. Proponents of this theory suggested that the Caribbean's unique combination of ocean currents, magnetic fields, and atmospheric conditions might somehow contribute to the disappearances. While mainstream scientists dismissed these explanations as pseudo-scientific, the theory persisted because it offered some form of explanation for an otherwise inexplicable phenomenon. The reality was likely much more mundane, but no less troubling. The Caribbean's popularity as a cruise destination meant that more people were exposed to whatever factors contributed to cruise ship disappearances. The region's complex international jurisdiction made investigation and coordination more difficult. The warm climate encouraged passengers to spend more time on deck, potentially increasing their exposure to whatever risks led to these vanishings. Local authorities in Caribbean nations began to take notice of the disappearance phenomenon as media attention increased throughout them. Several island governments commissioned their own studies of the incidents, hoping to understand whether factors specific to their waters might be contributing to the problem. The Bahamas, which served as a port of call for numerous cruise lines, established a special maritime investigation unit in 1985, specifically to handle cruise ship incident reports. Their findings, published in 1987, revealed that many disappearances occurred not while ships were docked in port, but during the overnight passages between islands. This timing was particularly significant because it meant that disappearances were happening during the periods when passengers were most likely to be relaxed and enjoying the cruise experience. These were not incidents occurring during emergency situations or periods of high stress, but during the peaceful, enjoyable moments that cruise lines marketed as the essence of the cruise experience. The emotional impact on Caribbean tourism was significant. Families who had lost loved ones began organizing boycotts of certain cruise lines and destinations. Travel agents reported increased anxiety among potential cruise passengers, with many specifically avoiding Caribbean itineraries, despite their popularity. The cruise industry's response to these concerns was mixed. Some companies increased security measures and implemented new passenger tracking procedures. Others focused on public relations efforts designed to minimize media attention and maintain consumer confidence. The advent of widespread internet access in the 1990s fundamentally changed how cruise ship disappearances were perceived, investigated, and discussed. For the first time in history, families affected by these tragedies could connect with one another, share information, and coordinate their efforts to seek answers and accountability. Online forums and early websites dedicated to cruise ship safety began cataloging cases that had previously been isolated incidents known only to the immediate families involved. What emerged was a comprehensive database of disappearances that revealed the true scope of the problem for the first time. Janet Morrison, whose brother had disappeared from a Caribbean cruise in 1992, was among the first to recognize the power of internet networking for families affected by cruise ship disappearances. Her website, launched in 1995, became a gathering place for hundreds of families who had experienced similar losses. The stories shared on Janet's website painted a disturbing picture of systematic problems within the cruise industry's approach to passenger disappearances. Families reported being given contradictory information by cruise line representatives, being discouraged from involving media or law enforcement, and being offered financial settlements in exchange for agreeing not to discuss their cases publicly. More troubling were the patterns that emerged when cases were examined collectively. Many families reported being told that their loved one's disappearance was an isolated incident, only to discover through online networking that similar cases had occurred on the same ship or cruise line multiple times. The internet also enabled families to share investigative resources and strategies. Private investigators who specialized in maritime cases began offering their service to multiple families simultaneously, allowing for more comprehensive and cost-effective investigations. Dr. Lisa Chen, a forensic psychologist who began studying cruise ship disappearances in the late 1990s, utilized internet resources to conduct the first large-scale analysis of these cases. Her database, which eventually included over 400 documented disappearances, revealed patterns that had never been apparent when cases were examined individually. Dr. Chen's research identified several risk factors that appeared to correlate with higher rates of disappearance. Solo travelers were disproportionately represented among the missing, as were passengers traveling on their first cruise. Certain ship designs, particularly those with lower deck railings or fewer security cameras, showed higher incident rates. Perhaps most significantly, Chen's analysis revealed that the rate of cruise ship disappearances had been steadily increasing throughout the 1980s and 1990s, even as overall maritime safety had improved. This trend suggested that whatever factors contributed to these incidents were becoming more prevalent or more problematic over time. The internet age also brought increased media attention to cruise ship disappearances. Television documentaries, newspaper investigations, and online articles began examining specific cases in detail, often revealing information that had not been disclosed during official investigation. This media coverage had a profound impact on public perception of cruise safety. Survey data from the late 1990s showed that awareness of cruise ship disappearances had increased dramatically, with many potential passengers expressing concern about the phenomenon when considering cruise vacations. The cruise industry's response to increased internet-driven scrutiny was to implement more comprehensive public relations strategies. Industry associations began producing their own statistics on cruise safety, often emphasizing the rarity of disappearances compared to the millions of passengers who cruise safely each year. However, families affected by disappearances argued that these industry statistics were misleading because they failed to account for the unique trauma and unanswered questions associated with unexplained vanishings. Unlike other forms of travel accidents, cruise ship disappearances left families without closure, without understanding, and often without adequate support from the companies involved. The emergence of social media platforms in the 2000s brought another revolutionary change to how cruise ship disappearances were documented, discussed, and investigate it. Facebook groups, Twitter hashtags, and YouTube videos created new venues for families to share their stories and seek support from others who had experienced similar tragedies. Social media also enabled real-time communication during cruise voyages, which had significant implications for how disappearances were reported and investigated. Passengers could now post updates and photos throughout their cruise, creating detailed digital records of their activities and state of mind leading up to any incident. The case of Sarah Mitchell, who disappeared from a Mediterranean cruise in 2008, illustrated both the potential and the limitations of social media in cruise disappearance investigation. Sarah had been actively posting photos and updates to her Facebook account throughout the first 4 days of her cruise, documenting her meals, excursions, and interactions with fellow passengers. Sarah's final social media post, made at 11:47 p.m. on the 4th night of her cruise, showed her on the ship's deck with a group of friends she had met during the voyage. The photo was cheerful and showed no signs of distress or unusual behavior. Sarah was reported missing the following morning when she failed to meet her roommate for breakfast as planned. The digital trail left by Sarah's social media activity provided investigators with more detailed information about her final hours than had ever been available in previous disappearance cases. Her posts revealed her mood, her activities, and even her exact location at specific times throughout the evening before she vanished. Despite this unprecedented level of documentation, Sarah's disappearance remained as mysterious as any previous case. The security cameras that should have captured her movements after her final social media post had mysteriously malfunctioned. No passenger or crew member remembered seeing her after the group photo was taken on deck. Sarah's case became one of the first cruise ship disappearances to achieve viral social media attention. Her Facebook friends shared her missing person information across multiple platforms, generating thousands of shares and comments. The hashtag #JangFindSarahMitchell trended on Twitter for several days, bringing international attention to her case. The social media response to Sarah's disappearance also revealed the deep emotional impact these cases had on complete strangers. People who had never met Sarah felt compelled to share her story, offer theories about what might have happened, and express solidarity with her family's search for answers. This viral attention had both positive and negative consequences. On the positive side, it generated pressure on the cruise line and law enforcement agencies to conduct more thorough investigations. It also connected Sarah's family with other families who had experienced similar losses, providing them with emotional support and practical advice about navigating the complex process of seeking answers. On the negative side, the social media attention also generated a flood of conspiracy theories, false leads, and unhelpful speculation that complicated the investigation. Sarah's family found themselves spending significant time responding to social media messages from well-meaning but misinformed individuals who claimed to have information about her disappearance. The phenomenon of social media activism around cruise ship disappearances led to the formation of several online organizations dedicated to cruise safety and passenger rights. These groups used social media platforms to coordinate advocacy efforts, share safety information, and maintain public awareness of the disappearance phenomenon. The rise of YouTube as a platform for long-form investigative content brought a new dimension to public awareness of cruise ship disappearance. Independent content creators began producing detailed documentaries about specific cases, often conducting their own research and interviews to uncover information that had not been reported in traditional media. These YouTube investigations had several advantages over traditional journalism. Content creators could devote unlimited time to single cases, conducting extensive research and producing multi-part series that explored every aspect of a disappearance. They could also operate without the commercial pressures that sometimes influenced traditional media coverage of stories involving major cruise lines. The YouTube channel Maritime Mysteries, launched in 2012, became the premier destination for detailed coverage of cruise ship disappearance. The channel's creator, former Coast Guard investigator David Park, used his maritime expertise to analyze cases with a level of technical detail that had never been available to the general public. Park's investigations revealed troubling patterns in how cruise lines responded to disappearance incidents. His analysis of official incident reports showed significant inconsistencies in how similar cases were handled, with some receiving thorough investigation, while others appeared to be minimally investigated and quickly closed. The YouTube investigations also provided a platform for family members to tell their stories in their own words, without the editing and time constraints of traditional media coverage. These personal testimonials had a powerful emotional impact on viewers and helped humanize the statistics surrounding cruise ship disappearances. One particularly influential YouTube series examined the case of Michael Rodriguez, who had disappeared from a Carnival cruise ship. The series, which ran for 12 episodes over 6 months, included interviews with Michael's family, fellow passengers, crew members, and maritime safety experts. The investigation revealed significant problems with the ship's security camera system, inconsistencies in witness statements, and apparent gaps in the cruise line's incident response procedures. The series generated over 2 million views and led to renewed interest in Michael's case from law enforcement agencies. The success of maritime mystery content on YouTube also led to the emergence of conspiracy theories and sensationalized content that sometimes obscured rather than illuminated the truth about cruise ship disappearances. Some content creators prioritize dramatic storytelling over factual accuracy, leading to the spread of misinformation about specific cases. To address these concerns, several family advocacy organizations began working with responsible YouTube creators to ensure that content about cruise ship disappearances was accurate, respectful to families, and focused on legitimate safety concerns rather than sensationalized speculation. The combined impact of internet forums, social media, and YouTube investigations created what researchers termed the amplification effect in public perception of cruise ship disappearances. Cases that might have received minimal attention in previous decades now became the subject of extensive online discussion and analysis. This amplification had significant implications for both families affected by disappearances and the cruise industry as a whole. Families found themselves with unprecedented ability to maintain public awareness of their cases and to connect with others who shared their experiences. However, they also faced new challenges in managing the intense scrutiny and speculation that often accompanied viral attention. The cruise industry was forced to adapt to an environment where every incident could potentially become the subject of extensive online investigation and discussion. Companies that had previously been able to handle disappearance cases quietly and privately now found themselves dealing with public relations challenges that could persist for months or years after an incident. Dr. Emily Watson, a communications researcher who studied the impact of social media on crisis management in the cruise industry, found that online amplification had fundamentally changed how these cases were perceived by the public. Her research, published in 2018, showed that social media coverage of cruise ship disappearances had significantly increased public awareness of the phenomenon, even as the actual rate of incidents had remained relatively stable. The amplification effect also had important implications for policy and regulation. Public pressure generated through online advocacy had contributed to several legislative initiatives aimed at improving cruise ship safety and passenger rights. The Cruise Vessel Security and Safety Act, passed by the U.S. Congress in 2010, was directly influenced by online advocacy efforts organized by families of missing passengers. As we moved into the 2010s and beyond, the historical patterns established in earlier decades continued to manifest in new disappearance cases. Despite advances in technology, improvements in safety procedures, and increased regulatory oversight, passengers continued to vanish from cruise ships under circumstances that defied explanation. Modern cases benefited from better documentation, more sophisticated investigation techniques, and increased public scrutiny. However, these advantages had not translated into better resolution rates or clearer understanding of what caused these disappearances. The persistence of unexplained cruise ship disappearances in the modern era raised troubling questions about whether the fundamental factors contributing to these incidents had been properly identified or addressed. Some researchers began to suggest that the focus on individual cases might be obscuring larger systemic issues within the cruise industry or maritime travel in general. James Martinez, a systems analyst who began studying cruise ship operations in 2015, proposed that disappearances might be better understood as emergent properties of complex systems rather than isolated incidents with specific causes. His research suggested that the interaction of multiple factors, ship design, passenger behavior, crew procedures, and environmental conditions, might create rare but recurring situations where disappearances became possible. This systems-based approach to understanding cruise ship disappearances represented a significant departure from traditional investigative methods that focused on identifying specific causes or responsible parties. It suggested that preventing future disappearances might require comprehensive changes to cruise ship operations rather than targeted fixes for particular problems. The historical evolution of cruise ship disappearances reveals a phenomenon that has adapted to changing technology and social conditions while maintaining its essential mystery. From the early cases like Margaret Whitmore's disappearance from the SS City of Paris, to modern incidents documented through social media and YouTube investigations, these cases continue to challenge our understanding of maritime safety and human behavior. The amplification effect created by internet technology has brought unprecedented attention to cruise ship disappearances, but it has not brought us significantly closer to understanding why they occur or how they can be prevented. If anything, better documentation and investigation have only emphasized how truly inexplicable these cases remain. As we continue to examine specific cases and analyze broader patterns, the historical context provided by more than a century of documented disappearances serves as a sobering reminder that this phenomenon predates our modern cruise industry and may persist despite our best efforts to understand and prevent it. The families who have lost loved ones to these mysterious vanishings serve as living links between the historical cases of the past and the ongoing incidents of the present. Their continued advocacy for answers and accountability ensures that these cases will not be forgotten, even as new mysteries continue to emerge from the vast expanse of the world's ocean. The gentle sway of a cruise ship on calm waters, the promise of exotic destinations, and the allure of endless entertainment draw millions of travelers to the seas each year. For most, these floating cities represent the pinnacle of vacation luxury, a chance to disconnect from the stresses of daily life while exploring new horizons. Yet beneath the surface of this maritime paradise lies a darker reality that few dare to acknowledge: the mysterious disappearances that have plagued the cruise industry for decades. When someone vanishes on a cruise ship, they don't simply leave behind an empty cabin or a missed dinner reservation. They leave behind families whose worlds crumble in an instant, questions that may never find answers, and a haunting reminder that even in our modern age of surveillance and technology, people can simply vanish without a trace. The vast expanse of the ocean has always held secrets, but modern cruise ships were supposed to be different. These floating metropolises, equipped with state-of-the-art security systems, countless cameras, and hundreds of crew members, seemed to promise safety through sheer visibility. How could someone disappear from a contained environment where every corridor is monitored and every passenger is accounted for? The reality is far more complex and deeply troubling. Each year, dozens of people disappear from cruise ships under circumstances that defy explanation. Some vanish during calm weather in the middle of the night, leaving behind undisturbed cabins and untouched belongings. Others are last seen in public areas, surrounded by fellow passengers, only to be discovered missing hours later, when they fail to return to their room. The emotional toll on families is immeasurable. Imagine the terror of realizing your loved one is nowhere to be found on a ship in the middle of the ocean. The desperation of searching every deck, every lounge, every hidden corner, only to be met with empty spaces and bewildered faces. The crushing weight of knowing that with each passing hour, the ship moves further from where your family member was last seen, and the vast ocean grows ever more impenetrable. The Rebecca Corium case, a young life lost to the sea. On March 22, 2011, 24-year-old Rebecca Coriam disappeared from the Disney Wonder cruise ship while it was sailing off the Pacific coast of Mexico. Rebecca wasn't just another passenger enjoying a vacation. She was a beloved crew member who had dedicated her life to bringing joy to children aboard the ship. Rebecca's story begins not with mystery but with hope and adventure. A vibrant young woman from Chester, England, she had landed her dream job working as a youth counselor for Disney Cruise Line. Those who knew her described her as someone who genuinely loved working with children, whose infectious enthusiasm made every day brighter for the families she served. She had sent a message via Facebook to her parents in Britain, telling them she would call them the next day. It was a simple promise, the kind of casual communication that connects families across vast distances. A promise that would never be kept. The last confirmed sighting of Rebecca was captured on the ship's security cameras. At 5:45 a.m., cameras on the crew deck showed Rebecca using a ship phone to call another crew member. She appeared visibly distressed by the time she ended the call. This haunting image would become the final visual record of a young woman whose life was about to intersect with one of the sea's most enduring mysteries. Rebecca was scheduled to report to work at 9:00 a.m., but when she failed to appear, concern quickly turned to alarm. In the tightly organized world of cruise ship operations, missing a shift is virtually unheard of. Crew members are acutely aware of their responsibilities, and the ship's schedule runs with military precision. The search that followed was exhaustive yet futile. Every deck was combed, every storage room investigated, every possible hiding place explored. Rebecca's colleagues and supervisors, who had worked alongside her for months, joined the desperate hunt. The ship's crew, trained in emergency procedures, methodically checked every area where she might have sought solitude or assistance. When the ship-wide search yielded nothing, the U.S. Coast Guard and Mexican authorities were contacted. The maritime search and rescue operation that followed was massive in scope, involving multiple vessels, aircraft, and specialized teams. Searchers scoured the waters where the ship had traveled, looking for any sign of Rebecca. The investigation revealed troubling inconsistencies and unanswered questions that continue to haunt her family. The emotional distress visible in that final phone call raises questions about what Rebecca might have been experiencing in her final hours. Was she struggling with personal issues? Had she encountered a situation that put her in danger? The answers remain locked away, as impenetrable as the ocean depths. Rebecca's parents, Anne and Mike Coriam, found themselves thrust into a nightmare that no parent should ever endure. Disney eventually reached a settlement with the Coriam family, but no amount of money can fill the void left by their daughter's disappearance. They have continued to advocate for answers, establishing websites and working with investigators to keep Rebecca's case in the public eye. The case has attracted attention from private investigators and documentary filmmakers who believe there may be more to Rebecca's disappearance than meets the eye. Some have suggested that the investigation was inadequate, that crucial evidence may have been overlooked, or that the truth about what happened to Rebecca may have been deliberately concealed. For the Coriam family, every day brings the weight of not knowing. They wake each morning to the same questions that tormented them the day before. Where is Rebecca? What happened to her in those final hours? Is she still alive somewhere? Or did the ocean claim her as it has claimed so many others? Rebecca's case, while particularly well documented, is far from unique. The phenomenon of cruise ship disappearances represents a troubling pattern that has persisted for decades, affecting both passengers and crew members across all major cruise lines. The statistics are sobering. According to various maritime safety organizations, dozens of people disappear from cruise ships each year. These are not simply cases of passengers who had too much to drink and accidentally fell overboard. Many involve individuals who were last seen in secure areas of the ship, who showed no signs of distress, and whose disappearances occurred under circumstances that seem to defy logical explanation. The emotional impact on families extends far beyond the immediate shock of learning their loved one is missing. The unique nature of cruise ship disappearances creates a particularly cruel form of grief. Unlike disappearances on land, where searches can continue indefinitely and hope can persist for years, The ocean's vastness creates a sense of finality that is both immediate and haunting. Families often describe feeling helpless as the ship continues its journey, taking them further from the last known location of their missing loved one. The necessity of maintaining the cruise schedule creates a surreal disconnect between the ongoing entertainment and activities for other passengers and the desperate search for someone who has vanished. The psychological trauma is compounded by the lack of closure. On land, families of missing persons can return to the last known location, can participate in ongoing searches, can feel they are doing something to help find their loved one. But when someone disappears from a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, that opportunity is lost forever. The Amy Lynn Bradley case, a mystery that endures. While Rebecca Coriam's disappearance is relatively recent, the case of Amy Lynn Bradley represents one of the most enduring mysteries in cruise ship history. Amy was a strong swimmer and trained lifeguard who disappeared during a Caribbean cruise, making theories of accidental drowning less plausible. Amy's case has captured public attention for decades, spawning television documentaries, books, and countless online discussions. Her disappearance has been featured on Dr. Phil and America's Most Wanted, keeping her story alive in the public consciousness and maintaining pressure for answers. The Bradley family has never given up hope. They have offered a $250,000 reward for information leading to Amy's safe return, with an additional $50,000 reward for information about her whereabouts. This substantial reward reflects not only the family's financial resources, but their unwavering belief that Amy might still be alive. The persistence of Amy's family illustrates the profound impact that cruise ship disappearances have on loved ones. Unlike other missing person cases where families might eventually accept that their loved one has passed away, the unique circumstances of cruise ship disappearances often leave room for hope, however slim. This hope can be both a blessing and a curse, providing motivation to continue searching while also preventing the grieving process from reaching any form of resolution. The families of those who disappear on cruise ships endure a unique form of psychological trauma that mental health professionals are only beginning to understand. The combination of sudden loss, lack of closure, and the surreal environment in which the disappearance occurs creates a perfect storm of emotional devastation. Consider the experience of a family member who witnesses their loved one's disappearance. One moment they are sharing a meal, watching a show, or simply walking along the deck together. The next moment, their family member is gone, vanished into the night as if they had never existed. The transition from normalcy to nightmare is so abrupt that many families report feeling as though they are living in a dream. The contained environment of a cruise ship amplifies the psychological impact. Unlike disappearances that occur in cities or wilderness areas, cruise ships offer a finite space for searching. When that space has been thoroughly investigated and no trace of the missing person is found, families are forced to confront the reality that their loved one has somehow left the ship entirely. The social dynamics aboard cruise ships also create additional psychological challenges. While one family is experiencing the worst moment of their lives, thousands of other passengers continue their vacations, unaware of the tragedy unfolding around them. The contrast between the desperate search for a missing person and the ongoing festivities creates a sense of isolation and surreal disconnection from reality. Many families report feeling abandoned by the cruise lines after the initial search efforts conclude. While maritime law requires certain procedures to be followed, the emotional support for families often falls short of what is needed. Families find themselves navigating complex legal systems, dealing with multiple jurisdictions, and fighting for information about their loved one's case. The media attention that sometimes follows cruise ship disappearances can provide both comfort and additional stress. While publicity can help keep cases alive and potentially generate new leads, it also exposes families to public scrutiny and speculation during their most vulnerable moments. Investigating disappearances on cruise ships presents unique challenges that don't exist in land-based cases. The constant movement of the ship means that potential evidence is literally sailing away from the scene of the disappearance. By the time authorities can board the vessel, hours or even days may have passed, and the ship may be hundreds of miles from where the person was last seen. The jurisdictional complexity of cruise ship cases adds another layer of difficulty. Depending on the ship's location, registry, and the nationalities of those involved, multiple countries may have legal authority over the investigation. This can lead to confusion, delays, and conflicting approaches to the case. The temporary nature of the cruise ship community also complicates investigations. Passengers disembark at the end of their cruise, potentially taking crucial witness testimony with them. Crew members may be reassigned to other ships or returned to their home countries, making follow-up interviews difficult or impossible. The physical environment of cruise ships, while seeming to offer security through containment, actually presents numerous challenges for investigators. The size and complexity of modern cruise ships mean there are countless areas where someone could conceivably hide, fall, or encounter danger. Service corridors, mechanical spaces, and crew-only areas create a maze of possibilities that can take days to thoroughly search. The preservation of evidence is another significant challenge. The ship's cleaning and maintenance schedules continue regardless of ongoing investigations, potentially disturbing or destroying evidence before it can be properly documented. The large number of people moving through all areas of the ship makes it difficult to secure potential crime scenes or preserve forensic evidence. The disappearance of a fellow crew member creates a unique form of trauma for the maritime community. Cruise ship crew members often develop close relationships during their months-long contracts, creating bonds that can feel like family relationships. When a colleague disappears, the entire crew community is affected. In Rebecca Coriam's case, her fellow crew members not only lost a friend and colleague, but also had to continue working while grappling with the mystery of her disappearance. The youth counselors who worked alongside Rebecca had to find ways to continue bringing joy to children while dealing with their own grief and confusion about what had happened to their friend. The crew members who participated in the search for Rebecca faced their own emotional challenges. They knew the ship better than anyone, understood all the possible places where someone might be found, and felt a personal responsibility to locate their missing colleague. When their exhaustive search yielded nothing, they were forced to confront the reality that Rebecca had somehow left the ship entirely. The ripple effects of crew member disappearances extend far beyond the individual case. Other crew members may experience increased anxiety about their own safety, worry about their families back home, and struggle with the realization that their workplace, which had seemed secure, might harbor unknown danger. The cruise industry's response to crew member disappearances often focuses on policy changes and procedural improvements, but the emotional support for surviving crew members is frequently inadequate. Many crew members report feeling that their concerns and trauma are secondary to the company's desire to maintain normal operations and protect its reputation. Modern cruise ships are equipped with extensive security systems, including thousands of cameras, electronic keycard systems that track passenger movements, and sophisticated communication networks. This technology creates an expectation that disappearances should be impossible to conceal. Yet people continue to vanish without explanation. The case of Rebecca Coriam illustrates both the promise and limitations of shipboard technology. While cameras captured her final known conversation, they failed to record what happened to her afterward. The gap between her last recorded appearance and her failure to report to work represents a window of time that remains opaque despite the ship's technological capability. The challenge lies in the sheer volume of data generated by modern cruise ships. Thousands of hours of video footage, millions of electronic transactions, and countless digital footprints create a massive amount of information that must be analyzed in real time during a crisis. The temporary nature of cruise ship voyages means that this analysis must be completed quickly, often before the ship reaches its next port. The limitations of shipboard technology also become apparent when considering the ocean environment. Once someone leaves the ship, either voluntarily or involuntarily, the technological advantages of the vessel become irrelevant. The ocean's vastness swallows any evidence, and even the most sophisticated search equipment may prove inadequate. The psychological impact of technology's limitations cannot be understated. Families who expect that modern surveillance systems should provide answers to what happened to their loved one are often devastated to learn that technology, despite its sophistication, cannot solve every mystery. Each cruise ship disappearance sends ripples through the maritime industry, forcing companies to reevaluate their safety procedures and security measures. The cases of Rebecca Corium and others have led to changes in crew training, improved communication protocols, and enhanced monitoring system. However, the effectiveness of these improvements remains questionable when people continue to disappear despite the enhanced security measures. The industry faces a fundamental challenge: how to balance the open, vacation-friendly atmosphere that passengers expect with the security measures necessary to prevent disappearances. The psychological impact on other passengers is also significant. News of disappearances can create anxiety among current and future cruise passengers, who may find themselves constantly worried about their own safety or that of their family members. The cruise industry's efforts to downplay these incidents, while understandable from a business perspective, can inadvertently contribute to families' feelings of isolation and abandonment. The regulatory response to cruise ship disappearances has been mixed. While some improvements have been implemented, many safety advocates argue that more comprehensive changes are needed. The international nature of the cruise industry makes unified regulatory approaches challenging, as different countries may have varying standards and enforcement mechanisms. The families of those who have disappeared on cruise ships continue their search for answers, often decades after their loved ones vanished. They organize search efforts, hire private investigators, and work with journalists and documentary filmmakers to keep their cases in the public eye. The persistence of these families is both inspiring and heartbreaking. They demonstrate an unwavering love and commitment to their missing family members, refusing to give up hope even when official investigations have concluded. Their efforts have led to new leads being discovered, cold cases being reopened, and increased awareness of the issue of cruise ship disappearances. The emotional strength required to maintain this search is enormous. Families must relive their trauma repeatedly as they tell their stories to investigators, journalists, and anyone who might be able to help. They must navigate complex legal systems, deal with unresponsive bureaucracies, and fight for information that should be readily available. The support networks that have developed among families of the disappeared provide crucial emotional sustenance. Organizations like International Cruise Victims bring together families who share similar experiences, creating communities of support and advocacy. These groups work to ensure that the disappeared are not forgotten, and that their cases continue to receive attention. Behind every cruise ship disappearance statistic is a human story of love, loss, and the enduring power of family bonds. These are not abstract maritime incidents, but deeply personal tragedies that forever change the lives of those left behind. The parents who will never see their child graduate, get married, or have children of their own. The children who grow up without knowing what happened to their parent. The siblings who carry the weight of unanswered questions for the rest of their lives. The friends and colleagues who struggle to understand how someone they knew and loved could simply vanish. The ripple effects extend far beyond immediate family members. Communities rally around affected families. Schools hold memorial services for missing students, and workplaces struggle to cope with the sudden absence of a valued colleague. The human cost of these disappearances is immeasurable, touching countless lives in ways that can never be fully quantified. The anniversaries of disappearances become annual reminders of loss and uncertainty. Families mark these dates with memorial services, renewed appeals for information, and private moments of remembrance. The passage of time, rather than healing the wounds, often makes them more acute as hopes for resolution fade. Understanding why people disappear from cruise ships requires examining the unique psychological environment these vessels create. Cruise ships are designed to be total environments that remove passengers from their normal lives and immerse them in a carefully crafted experience. This separation from reality can have profound psychological effects on both passengers and crew members. The abundance of alcohol available on cruise ships is often cited as a contributing factor to disappearances. However, this explanation oversimplifies a complex issue. While alcohol may impair judgment and coordination, it doesn't adequately explain the mysterious circumstances surrounding many disappearances or the complete absence of witnesses in many cases. The social dynamics aboard cruise ships can also create psychological pressures that don't exist in other environments. The temporary nature of cruise ship relationships, combined with the artificial intimacy created by shared experiences, can lead to conflicts or situations that might not occur in normal circumstances. The crew environment presents its own psychological challenge. Crew members often work long hours under stressful conditions, live in cramped quarters, and may be far from home for months at a time. The hierarchical nature of ship operations can create power imbalances that might contribute to conflicts or dangerous situations. The isolation of cruise ships, despite their size and population, can create a sense of being trapped or confined. For individuals experiencing personal crises, mental health challenges, or interpersonal conflicts, the inability to simply leave the environment may create additional stress and pressure. The ongoing occurrence of cruise ship disappearances highlights the need for continued improvements in maritime safety measures. Technology continues to evolve, offering new possibilities for monitoring and tracking individuals aboard ships. Advanced surveillance systems, improved communication networks, and enhanced search and rescue capabilities may help prevent future disappearance. However, technology alone cannot solve the problem. The human element remains crucial in preventing and responding to disappearances. Training programs for crew members, improved mental health support systems, and better protocols for identifying and assisting individuals in distress are all essential components of a comprehensive safety approach. The industry must also grapple with the balance between safety and privacy. Enhanced monitoring systems that could help prevent disappearances might also infringe on passengers' reasonable expectations of privacy during their vacations. Finding the right balance between these competing interests remains an ongoing challenge. International cooperation is essential for addressing cruise ship disappearances effectively. The global nature of the cruise industry requires coordinated efforts among multiple countries to establish consistent safety standards, improve investigation procedures, and ensure that families receive the support they need during their darkest hour. The unexplained disappearances on cruise ships represent more than maritime mysteries. They are reminders of the fragility of human life and the enduring power of love and hope. The families of Rebecca Coriam, Amy Lynn Bradley, and countless others who have vanished at sea continue to seek answers, not just for their own peace of mind, but to prevent other families from experiencing the same devastating loss. Their stories serve as memorials to those who disappeared and as calls to action for improved safety measures, better investigation procedures, and more compassionate support for affected families. The ocean may have claimed their bodies, but their memories live on in the hearts of those who loved them, and in the ongoing efforts to ensure that no other family endures the nightmare of a loved one vanishing without a trace. As we marvel at the luxury and entertainment offered by modern cruise ships, we must also remember that the sea remains an environment where mysteries can unfold and lives can be lost. The disappeared deserve to be remembered not as statistics or cautionary tales, but as individuals who lived, loved, and left indelible marks on the hearts of those who knew them. The search for answers continues, driven by love, sustained by hope, and motivated by the belief that every person who has vanished deserves to be found and brought home. Until that day comes, their families will continue to keep their stories alive, ensuring that the disappeared are never forgotten, and that their cases remain open until the truth is finally revealed. In the end, these maritime mysteries remind us that even in our modern world of advanced technology and comprehensive safety systems, some questions remain unanswered, some mysteries endure, and some families continue to wait for news that may never come. Their strength in the face of such uncertainty serves as a testament to the human spirit and a reminder that love transcends even the vast emptiness of the sea. The waves may wash away footprints in the sand, but they cannot erase the memories of those who have been lost to the ocean's depths. Their stories continue to unfold with each passing day, written not in water, but in the hearts of those who refuse to let them be forgotten. When someone vanishes from a cruise ship, the human mind desperately seeks explanations. Families demand answers. Investigators piece together fragments of evidence. The media speculates endlessly. Yet, despite our collective need to understand, the theories surrounding cruise ship disappearances often raise more questions than they answer, leaving loved ones trapped in a limbo of uncertainty that can persist for decades. The search for truth in these maritime mysteries reveals the complexity of human behavior, the limitations of modern investigation techniques, and the profound impact that unanswered questions can have on those left behind. Each theory carries its own emotional weight, offering different forms of hope or despair to families who simply want to know what happened to their loved one. Perhaps the most psychologically comforting explanation for cruise ship disappearances is human error. The idea that these tragedies result from simple accidents rather than deliberate actions or malicious intent. This theory encompasses a range of scenarios, from passengers who lose their footing on wet decks to crew members who make fatal miscalculations while performing routine tasks. The appeal of the human error theory lies in its randomness. It suggests that disappearances are simply terrible accidents that could happen to anyone, at any time, without warning or malicious intent. For families struggling to make sense of their loss, this explanation can provide a form of solace by removing the specter of intentional harm or personal responsibility. Investigations into cruise ship incidents have revealed that human error plays a key role in many maritime accidents, as crew members sometimes fail to follow proper protocols or passengers make dangerous decisions without fully understanding the risks involved. The maritime environment, with its combination of moving surfaces, changing weather conditions, and unfamiliar surroundings, creates numerous opportunities for accidents to occur. Consider the emotional impact on a family when investigators suggest that their loved one's disappearance resulted from a simple accident. There's a cruel irony in this explanation. It's simultaneously the most innocent and the most devastating possibility. Innocent because it implies no one intended harm, yet devastating because it suggests that a moment of inattention or a single misstep led to an irreversible tragedy. The psychological weight of accidental death theory extends beyond immediate family members. Fellow passengers who were present during the final hours before a disappearance often torture themselves with questions about what they might have noticed or done differently. Could they have prevented the accident? Were there warning signs they missed? The guilt and second guessing can persist for years. Crew members face their own emotional challenges when accidents occur on their watch. The maritime industry operates on principles of safety and responsibility, and when someone is lost due to human error, the entire crew community feels the weight of that failure. Training programs and safety protocols exist precisely to prevent such accidents, making their occurrence all the more traumatic for those whose job it is to protect passengers and colleagues. The human error theory also encompasses cases of misidentification, where someone might be incorrectly counted as missing when they are actually safely aboard the ship, but in an unexpected location. These cases, while rare, highlight the complexity of tracking thousands of individuals in a constantly moving environment. The relief when a missing person is found alive is immeasurable, but it also underscores the anxiety and terror that families experience during the initial hours of a disappearance. The challenge with the human error theory is that it often fails to explain the complete absence of witnesses or physical evidence in many disappearance cases. Modern cruise ships are crowded environments where true privacy is difficult to achieve. Yet people vanish without anyone seeing or hearing anything suspicious. This discrepancy between the theory and the evidence can leave families feeling that important details are being overlooked or deliberately hidden. The most statistically common explanation offered for cruise ship disappearances is that individuals deliberately jumped overboard, either in moments of crisis or as planned acts of self-harm. This theory forces families and investigators to confront some of the darkest aspects of human psychology, while grappling with the complex factors that might drive someone to make such a final decision. Several factors can contribute to passengers going missing, including accidental falls from rough seas, intoxication, or simply leaning too far over a railing. But the deliberate jump theory suggests a more intentional action that requires understanding the mental state of the disappeared person in their final hours. The emotional impact of this theory on families is profound and complicated. For some, it provides a sense of closure, a definitive explanation for what happened to their loved one. For others, it creates additional trauma as they struggle to understand what could have driven their family member to such desperation. The theory forces families to examine their relationships with the disappeared person, searching for signs of distress they might have missed. The jump overboard theory is particularly challenging because it implies that the disappeared person was suffering in ways that weren't apparent to those around them. Families find themselves replaying conversations, analyzing behavior patterns, and questioning whether they could have provided better support or intervention. The guilt associated with this self-examination can be overwhelming. Consider the psychological complexity of someone who chooses to end their life while surrounded by thousands of people on what should be a joyful vacation. The cruise ship environment, with its emphasis on fun, relaxation, and escape from daily worries, creates a stark contrast to the internal turmoil that would drive such a decision. This disconnect between external circumstances and internal experience can make it difficult for families to accept the theory. The logistics of jumping overboard from a modern cruise ship also raise questions about the theory's validity in some cases. Cruise ship railings are typically designed to prevent accidental falls, requiring deliberate effort to overcome. Security cameras monitor most public areas, yet many disappearances occur without any footage of the alleged jump. The absence of witnesses in such a public environment seems inconsistent with a theory that should involve visible, dramatic action. The timing of many disappearances also challenges the jump overboard theory. People often vanish during calm weather conditions when jumping would be most difficult to accomplish unnoticed. The lack of disturbance in personal belongings, the absence of farewell messages, and the failure to exhibit typical warning signs all cast doubt on the theory in specific cases. For families, the jump overboard theory raises difficult questions about their loved one's final moments. Did they suffer? Did they regret their decision? Were they thinking about their family as they made their final choice? These questions can torment survivors for years, creating a form of complicated grief that's difficult to resolve. The theory also has broader implications for how cruise lines and fellow passengers respond to individuals who may be experiencing emotional distress. If people are indeed jumping overboard in moments of crisis, it suggests a failure of support systems and intervention protocols. The temporary nature of cruise ship communities makes it difficult to identify and assist individuals who might be struggling with mental health challenges. Mental health professionals who work with families affected by cruise ship disappearances often find the jump overboard theory particularly challenging to address. The stigma associated with self-harm can prevent families from openly discussing their fears and concerns, while the finality of the ocean environment makes it impossible to provide the kind of closure that might be available in other circumstances. Perhaps the most disturbing explanation for cruise ship disappearances is the possibility of foul play. That someone aboard the ship deliberately harmed the missing person and concealed the evidence. This theory transforms the cruise ship from a vacation paradise into a potential crime scene, raising questions about security, investigation procedures, and the dark possibilities that can lurk beneath civilized society. Bloodstains found in cabins and on the side of ships, along with the appearance that someone might have been thrown overboard, have led investigators to consider foul play in various cases. The physical evidence in some disappearances suggests violence occurred, yet the maritime environment makes it extremely difficult to preserve crime scenes or conduct thorough forensic investigations. The emotional impact of the foul play theory on families is devastating in a unique way. Unlike accidents or self-harm, foul play implies that someone deliberately chose to harm their loved one. It transforms the disappearance from a tragic event into a criminal act, creating a need for justice that may never be satisfied. Families find themselves not only grieving a loss, but also harboring anger toward an unknown perpetrator who may never be identified or held accountable. The psychology of foul play on cruise ships is particularly complex because of the temporary nature of the shipboard community. Passengers and crew members come together for brief periods, forming superficial relationships that may conceal dangerous intention. The anonymity and lack of long-term consequences that characterize cruise ship interactions can potentially embolden individuals who might not act on violent impulses in their normal environment. Private investigators examining cruise ship disappearances have claimed to possess compelling evidence of criminal activity, with some stating that the more they investigate, the more certain cases appear to involve crime. These professionals often express frustration with official investigations that they believe fail to adequately pursue criminal possibilities. The cruise ship environment presents unique challenges for both committing and investigating crime. The isolation of the vessel, the transient nature of the population, and the complex jurisdictional issues create opportunities for criminal activity, while simultaneously making detection and prosecution extremely difficult. Perpetrators may believe they can literally sail away from their crimes, while investigators struggle with evidence preservation and witness availability. Consider the psychological impact on fellow passengers when foul play is suspected. The knowledge that someone among them might be capable of violence transforms the crew's experience from one of relaxation and trust to one of suspicion and fear. Passengers find themselves evaluating their interactions with others, wondering if that friendly conversation at dinner or chance encounter on deck might have involved a dangerous individual. The crew member perspective on foul play theories is equally complex. Staff members work closely together in confined spaces for months at a time, developing relationships that can include both strong bonds and significant conflicts. The hierarchical nature of ship operations, combined with the isolation from normal legal and social structures, can create power dynamics that might enable abuse or violence. The investigation of potential foul play on cruise ships is complicated by the rapid pace of cruise ship operation. Unlike land-based crime scenes that can be secured indefinitely, cruise ships must continue their schedules, potentially compromising evidence and scattering witnesses across multiple countries. The international nature of cruise ship operations also creates jurisdictional complications that can delay or complicate criminal investigations. Families who suspect foul play often find themselves frustrated by what they perceive as inadequate investigation. The complex legal environment surrounding cruise ship incidents can make it difficult for families to access information or ensure that criminal possibilities are thoroughly explored. The financial resources required to pursue private investigations or legal action can be overwhelming for families already dealing with the emotional trauma of their loss. The media attention that sometimes accompanies cases involving suspected foul play can create additional stress for families. While publicity can help keep cases active and potentially generate new leads, it also exposes families to public scrutiny and speculation during their most vulnerable moments. The sensational nature of cruise ship crime stories can sometimes overshadow the human cost of these tragedies. The reality of cruise ship disappearances is that they rarely fit neatly into a single theoretical framework. Most cases involve complex combinations of factors that make definitive explanations difficult or impossible to determine. The interplay between human error, mental health crises, and potential criminal activity creates a web of possibilities that can torment families and frustrate investigators. Consider how alcohol consumption, which is prevalent on cruise ships, might contribute to multiple theoretical explanations simultaneously. Intoxication could lead to accidental falls, impair judgment leading to dangerous decisions, or make individuals more vulnerable to criminal activity. The same blood alcohol level that might support an accident theory could equally support theories of impaired decision-making or increased vulnerability to harm. The timing and circumstances of many disappearances also resist simple explanation. People vanish during calm weather from secure areas of ships, leaving behind undisturbed personal belongings and no apparent signs of struggle. These details challenge single-theory explanations and suggest that the truth may involve factors that investigators haven't yet identified or understood. The psychological impact on families of having multiple competing theories is immense. Each possibility carries its own emotional weight and implications for how survivors process their grief. The uncertainty created by conflicting theories can prevent families from achieving any sense of closure, leaving them trapped in a perpetual state of questioning and second-guessing. The role of maritime environment in theoretical development. The unique characteristics of the maritime environment play a crucial role in shaping the theories surrounding cruise ship disappearance. The ocean's vastness means that physical evidence is quickly lost, making it impossible to verify or disprove most theoretical explanations. This evidential vacuum allows multiple theories to coexist without resolution, creating ongoing uncertainty for families and investigators. The psychological impact of the ocean environment cannot be understated. For many people, the sea represents both beauty and terror, freedom and isolation. The knowledge that someone has vanished into such an environment carries emotional weight that differs significantly from disappearances on land. The ocean's ability to completely erase traces of human presence adds a sense of finality that can be both devastating and strangely comforting. The seasonal nature of cruise ship operations also affects theoretical development. Weather patterns, passenger demographics, and crew compositions change throughout the year, potentially influencing the types of incidents that occur and the theories that develop to explain them. Understanding these patterns requires long-term analysis that may not be readily available to families seeking immediate answers. Modern cruise ships are equipped with sophisticated surveillance and monitoring systems that should theoretically make mysterious disappearances impossible. Yet people continue to vanish despite these technological advances, forcing theories to evolve to account for the apparent failure of security measures. The existence of extensive camera systems creates expectations that every disappearance should be captured on video. Yet many cases involve gaps in surveillance coverage or technical failures that prevent clear documentation of events. These technological limitations can strengthen some theories while undermining others, depending on what evidence is or isn't available. The digital footprints left by modern travelers, credit card transactions, phone records, social media activity, provide new sources of information for investigators, but also create new questions when these digital traces suddenly cease. The abrupt end of digital activity can support various theories about what happened to the disappeared person, but it rarely provides definitive answers. Developing accurate theories about cruise ship disappearances requires understanding the psychology of the individuals involved. But this understanding is often limited by the temporary nature of cruise ship relationships. Fellow passengers and crew members may have spent only hours or days with the disappeared person, making it difficult to assess their mental state or identify potential threats they might have faced. The cruise ship environment itself affects human psychology in ways that aren't fully understood. The combination of alcohol, unfamiliar surroundings, temporary relationships, and escape from normal responsibilities can lead to behavior that might be completely uncharacteristic for the individuals involved. This makes it difficult to predict or explain actions that occur in the cruise ship environment based on individuals' normal patterns of behavior. The anonymity available on cruise ships can also enable individuals to conceal their true intentions or mental state. Someone planning to harm themselves or others might deliberately choose the cruise environment because of the opportunities it provides for concealment and escape. This possibility must be considered when developing theories about disappearances, but it's often impossible to verify without access to the individual's private thoughts and plans. The process of investigating cruise ship disappearances creates its own psychological challenges for families. The theories developed by investigators are often presented as definitive explanations, yet the evidence supporting these theories may be limited or circumstantial. Families find themselves in the position of accepting explanations that may not fully address their questions or concerns. The rapid pace of cruise ship operations means that investigations must often be concluded quickly, before the ship continues its journey and evidence is potentially lost or contaminated. This time pressure can lead to theories being accepted or rejected based on limited information, creating uncertainty about whether the correct explanation has been identified. The multiple jurisdictions involved in cruise ship incidents can lead to different investigative approaches and different theoretical conclusions. Families may receive conflicting explanations from different authorities, each based on the same limited evidence but interpreted through different investigative frameworks and legal systems. The family perspective on competing theories. For families of the disappeared, the existence of multiple competing theories can be both a source of hope and a source of additional trauma. Each theory carries different implications for closure, justice, and future prevention efforts. The uncertainty created by conflicting theories can prevent families from moving forward with their grief and healing process. Some families find themselves advocating for specific theories that align with their understanding of their loved one's character and circumstance. They may reject explanations that seem inconsistent with their knowledge of the disappeared person, even when those explanations are supported by available evidence. This advocacy can become a way of honoring their loved one's memory while seeking truth and justice. Other families may find that accepting any theory is preferable to living with complete uncertainty. The need for closure can lead to acceptance of explanations that provide some sense of resolution, even if they don't address all questions or concerns. This acceptance doesn't necessarily reflect belief in the theory's accuracy, but rather a psychological need to move forward with the grieving process. The long-term impact of theoretical uncertainty on families cannot be overstated. Decades after a disappearance, family members may still be grappling with the same questions and theories that emerged in the immediate aftermath of the incident. The lack of resolution can affect their ability to form new relationships, make important decisions, and find meaning in their lives. The theories developed to explain cruise ship disappearances have implications that extend far beyond individual cases. They influence safety protocols, investigation procedures, and public perceptions of cruise ship travel. The acceptance or rejection of specific theories can affect how resources are allocated for prevention and investigation efforts. The emphasis on particular theories can also affect how similar cases are approached in the future. If investigators become convinced that most disappearances result from accidents, they may not adequately explore other possibilities in subsequent cases. Conversely, if foul play theories are overemphasized, resources might be wasted on criminal investigations when simpler explanations are more accurate. The public's understanding of cruise ship safety is also shaped by the theories that receive media attention. Sensational theories involving foul play may create fear that's disproportionate to the actual risks, while emphasis on accident theories might lead to complacency about safety measures that could prevent future incidents.
As more cases are documented and investigated, the understanding of cruise ship disappearances continues to evolve. Patterns that weren't apparent in individual cases may become clear when multiple incidents are analyzed together. This broader perspective can lead to new theories or modifications of existing ones. The development of new investigative techniques and technologies may also provide insights that weren't available in earlier cases. DNA analysis, improved surveillance systems, and better communication protocols may help resolve some of the uncertainties that have characterized cruise ship disappearance investigation. The involvement of families, advocacy groups, and independent investigators in the theoretical development process has brought new perspectives and resources to bear on these mysteries. Their efforts have kept cases active long after official investigations concluded and have sometimes led to new evidence or alternative explanations being considered. The existence of multiple unresolved theories about cruise ship disappearances creates a unique form of psychological trauma for all involved. Families must live with uncertainty that may never be resolved, while investigators must accept that some cases may remain forever mysterious despite their best efforts. The public fascination with cruise ship disappearances reflects a broader human need to understand and explain tragic events. The maritime setting adds an element of romance and mystery that captures imagination, but this fascination can sometimes overshadow the very real human cost of these tragedies. The persistence of multiple competing theories also highlights the limitations of human understanding and the complexity of determining truth in complex situations. Even with modern technology and investigative techniques, some mysteries may remain permanently unsolved. forcing all involved to find ways to live with uncertainty and unanswered questions. Understanding the theories behind cruise ship disappearances is ultimately aimed at prevention rather than just explanation. Each theoretical framework suggests different approaches to reducing the risk of future incidents. If accidents are the primary cause, then safety measures and environmental modifications should be prioritized. If mental health crises are common factors, then support services and intervention programs need to be developed. If foul play is occurring, then security measures and investigation protocols must be enhanced. The challenge is developing prevention strategies that address multiple theoretical possibilities simultaneously, without creating an oppressive or fearful environment for passengers and crew. The cruise industry must balance safety concerns with the relaxed, enjoyable atmosphere that attracts travelers in the first place. The involvement of mental health professionals, security experts, and maritime safety specialists in prevention efforts reflects the multifaceted nature of the challenge. No single approach is likely to address all the factors that contribute to cruise ship disappearances, requiring comprehensive strategies that consider various theoretical explanations. Despite decades of investigation and theoretical development, cruise ship disappearances continue to occur, and many remain unexplained. The persistence of these mysteries suggests that current theoretical frameworks may be incomplete or that factors not yet understood are involved. The emotional toll on families continues to drive efforts to develop better explanations and prevention strategies. Their advocacy and persistence have been crucial in keeping cases active and pushing for improvements in investigation and safety procedure. The broader implications of these mysteries extend beyond the cruise industry to maritime safety in general. The lessons learned from cruise ship disappearances may be applicable to other maritime environments and could contribute to improved safety for all who work and travel on the world's ocean. The theories surrounding cruise ship disappearances reflect humanity's struggle to make sense of tragic and mysterious events. Each theoretical framework offers different forms of comfort and distress to those seeking answers, while none provides the complete closure that families desperately seek. The human cost of these mysteries extends far beyond the individuals who disappear. Families, friends, crew members, and fellow passengers all carry the weight of unanswered questions and unresolved grief. The theories developed to explain these disappearances become part of their ongoing story, shaping how they understand their loss and plan their future. The persistence of multiple competing theories highlights both the complexity of human behavior and the limitations of investigative technique. Even with modern technology and resources, some mysteries may remain forever unsolved, forcing all involved to find ways to live with uncertainty while continuing to seek truth and understanding. The search for answers continues, driven by love, sustained by hope, and motivated by the belief that understanding these mysteries is essential for preventing future tragedies. Whether the truth lies in human error, deliberate actions, or factors not yet understood, the commitment to finding answers remains unwavering. In the end, the theories about cruise ship disappearances serve as reminders of the fragility of human life and the enduring power of human determination to seek truth and meaning in the face of the unknown. The ocean may keep its secrets, but the search for understanding continues, guided by the love of those who refuse to let the disappeared be forgotten, and the hope that someday, all questions will find their answer.
The vast expanse of the ocean has always held both wonder and terror in the human imagination. When someone boards a cruise ship, they expect relaxation, adventure, and memories that will last a lifetime. However, beneath the surface of these floating paradises lies a darker reality that few passengers consider: the mysterious disappearances that occur with alarming frequency on the high seas. These unexplained vanishings create ripple effects that extend far beyond the initial incident, touching the lives of families, fellow passengers, crew members, and entire communities. The psychological impact of such mysteries runs deep, creating lasting trauma that can span generations and fundamentally alter how people view safety, trust, and the very nature of reality itself. Human beings are wired to seek closure and understanding. Our brains constantly work to make sense of the world around us, creating patterns and explanations that help us feel secure in our environment. When someone simply vanishes without explanation,
It violates our fundamental need for logical order and predictability. The fear that stems from unexplained cruise ship disappearances taps into some of our most primal anxieties. The ocean itself represents the ultimate unknown, a vast, dark expanse where anything could happen. When combined with the mystery of human disappearance, it creates a perfect storm of psychological distress that can manifest in numerous ways. Modern media coverage of cruise ship disappearances often intensifies public fear through sensationalized reporting and speculation. Each new case that receives attention reinforces the narrative that cruise ships are dangerous places where people simply vanish into thin air. This creates a feedback loop where fear breeds more fear, and each new disappearance seems to confirm the worst suspicions about maritime travel. The psychological principle of availability heuristic plays a significant role here. People tend to overestimate the likelihood of events that are easily recalled or frequently reported in the media. As a result, many potential cruise passengers develop an irrational fear of disappearing at sea, despite the statistical rarity of such incidents compared to other forms of travel. The fear of unexplained disappearances doesn't just affect those who have direct experience with such incident. It creates anticipatory anxiety in countless individuals who are considering cruise travel. This anxiety can manifest as sleepless nights before booking, constant worry during the voyage, or complete avoidance of cruise travel altogether. Some travelers develop elaborate coping mechanisms to deal with their fears. They might research every detail of their ship's safety record, choose only interior cabins to avoid balcony incidents, or even bring tracking devices to ensure they can be located at all times. While these behaviors might provide temporary relief, they often reinforce the underlying anxiety rather than addressing it effectively. Fear has a remarkable ability to spread through social networks like a contagion. When someone in a community experiences anxiety about cruise ship disappearances, that fear can quickly transfer to friends, family members, and acquaintances through casual conversation, social media posts, and shared news articles. This social contagion effect is particularly pronounced in tight-knit communities where trust and shared experiences are highly valued. If a respected community member expresses fear about cruise travel due to unexplained disappearances, their concerns are likely to be taken seriously by others, creating a cascading effect of anxiety that can impact an entire social network.
Social media platforms have transformed how information about cruise ship disappearances spreads and evolves. A single post about a mysterious vanishing can reach thousands of people within hours, accompanied by speculation, theories, and emotional reactions that can significantly amplify the psychological impact of the original incident. The comment sections of such posts often become echo chambers where fears are validated and reinforced, rather than challenged or put into perspective. People share their own anxieties, personal theories, and related stories, creating a collective narrative that can be far more frightening than the actual facts of the case. The psychological effects of unexplained cruise ship disappearances extend beyond individual travelers to impact the entire cruise industry's approach to passenger psychology. Marketing departments must carefully balance transparency about safety measures with the need to maintain the carefree, relaxing image that attracts customers. This balancing act creates its own psychological pressures within the industry. Employees must simultaneously acknowledge the reality of occasional disappearances while maintaining an atmosphere of safety and enjoyment for their guests. This cognitive dissonance can create significant stress for those working in customer-facing roles. When someone disappears on a cruise ship without explanation, their loved ones experience what psychologists call ambiguous loss, a type of grief that occurs when the fate of a missing person remains unknown. Unlike traditional grief, which follows a clear loss and allows for closure, ambiguous loss exists in a state of perpetual uncertainty that can be psychologically devastating. Family members find themselves caught between hope and despair, unable to fully mourn their loved one because they don't know for certain what happened. This creates a psychological limbo that can persist for years or even decades,
preventing the natural grieving process from taking place and making it extremely difficult to achieve emotional resolution. Living with ambiguous loss means facing constant reminders of the missing person's uncertain fate. Every phone call could potentially bring news. Every knock at the door might be authorities with information. And every similar news story in the media can reopen emotional wounds that never fully heal. Family members often describe feeling like they're living in two realities simultaneously, one where their loved one might still be alive somewhere, and another where they must accept the possibility of loss. This psychological splitting can be exhausting and can significantly impact their ability to function in daily life. In the absence of concrete answers, families of disappeared cruise passengers often embark on their own investigations, seeking any information that might provide closure or explanation. This search can become all-consuming, taking over their lives as they pour resources, time, and emotional energy into finding answers that may never come. Some families find solace in creating memorials, establishing support groups, or advocating for improved safety measures on cruise ships. These activities can provide a sense of purpose and control in a situation that feels completely helpless, though they don't always lead to the emotional resolution that families desperately seek. Ambiguous loss doesn't just affect individuals, it can fundamentally alter family dynamics and relationships. Family members may cope with uncertainty in different ways, leading to conflict, misunderstanding, and additional emotional stress. Some may want to hold on to hope while others feel the need to accept the worst-case scenario and move forward. Marriage relationships are particularly vulnerable during periods of ambiguous loss. The stress of uncertainty, combined with different coping mechanisms and emotional needs, can strain even the strongest partnerships. Children in the family may struggle to understand why their parent or sibling disappeared, and may develop their own fears about travel, separation, or abandonment.
Passengers who were on board when someone disappeared often experience their own form of psychological trauma, even if they had no direct involvement in the incident. Witnessing the aftermath of a disappearance, the search efforts, the family's distress, the ship-wide announcements, can create lasting emotional scars that persist long after the cruise has ended. This secondary trauma can manifest as intrusive thoughts about the incident, anxiety about their own safety, survivor's guilt, or a persistent feeling that they should have done something to prevent what happened. The idyllic vacation they had planned becomes forever associated with tragedy and mystery, tainting what should have been positive memories. One of the most psychologically challenging aspects of experiencing a disappearance on a cruise ship is the inability to leave the situation. Unlike a traumatic event on land, where people can physically distance themselves from the scene, cruise passengers must remain on the ship for the duration of their voyage, often while search and rescue operations are still underway. This forced proximity to the scene of a disappearance can intensify psychological symptoms and prevent the natural impulse to seek safety by fleeing the area. Passengers report feeling trapped, anxious, and helpless as they must continue to eat, sleep, and socialize in the same environment where someone mysteriously vanished just hours or days early. Cruise vacations are specifically designed to create a psychological escape from daily stresses and responsibility. The sudden intrusion of a mysterious disappearance shatters this carefully constructed environment of relaxation and fun, creating a jarring psychological contrast that can be deeply disturbing. Passengers who were looking forward to disconnecting from real-world concerns suddenly find themselves confronted with one of life's most serious and frightening realities. The cognitive dissonance between their expectations of the trip and the reality they're experiencing can lead to feelings of disorientation, anger, and profound disappointment that extends far beyond the immediate incident. Many passengers who experience a disappearance during their cruise report lasting changes in their travel behavior and attitudes. Some develop a permanent aversion to cruise travel, while others become hyper-vigilant about safety during any form of vacation or travel. The psychological impact can extend to seemingly unrelated areas of life, as the experience challenges fundamental assumptions about safety and predictability. Some survivors report increased anxiety in crowded places, difficulty relaxing during any leisure activity, or a persistent feeling that disaster could strike at any moment, even in familiar environment. Cruise ship crew members face unique psychological challenges when dealing with unexplained passenger disappearance. Unlike passengers who are temporarily visiting the ship, crew members must continue working and living in the environment where the disappearance occurred, often for months at a time. The psychological burden of responsibility can be overwhelming, particularly for crew members who had direct contact with the missing person or who feel they should have noticed something unusual. This guilt can persist long after investigations conclude, creating lasting emotional distress that can impact job performance and personal well-being. Crew members are trained to maintain a cheerful, helpful demeanor regardless of circumstances, but this professional requirement becomes particularly challenging following a passenger disappearance. They must continue to provide excellent customer service and maintain the ship's atmosphere of fun and relaxation, while internally processing their own emotional responses to the tragedy. This emotional labor, the need to suppress genuine feelings in favor of professional requirements, can be psychologically exhausting and can lead to burnout, depression, and other mental health challenges. The disconnect between their inner emotional state and their required professional persona can create significant psychological stress over time.
Cruise ship crew members often work contracts that keep them at sea for months at a time, with limited contact with family and friends on shore. When a traumatic event like an unexplained disappearance occurs, this isolation can intensify the psychological impact, as crew members have limited access to their usual support systems. The close quarters nature of crew accommodations means that there's little privacy for processing emotions or seeking individual space to cope with trauma. Crew members must navigate their psychological responses within the constraints of a highly structured, communal living environment that offers few opportunities for solitude or emotional expression. Experiencing multiple passenger disappearances over the course of a maritime career can have cumulative psychological effects on crew members. Some report developing a cynical or fearful attitude toward their work, while others become hyper-vigilant about passenger safety, to the point where it interferes with their other job responsibility. The psychological toll can influence career decisions, with some experienced crew members choosing to leave the industry entirely, rather than continue to face the emotional challenges of shipboard life. This creates a significant loss of institutional knowledge and experience within the cruise industry, as those most qualified to handle emergencies may be driven away by the psychological burden of their experience. When a cruise passenger disappears, the impact extends beyond the ship to include the local communities at departure and destination ports. News of disappearances can affect local tourism industries, as potential visitors may associate the destination with danger or mystery. Local emergency responders, Coast Guard units, and search and rescue teams also experience psychological effects from participating in searches that often end without resolution. The frustration of being unable to provide answers or closure to desperate families can take a significant emotional toll on these professionals over time. The psychological phenomenon of public fascination with unsolved mysteries means that cruise ship disappearances often receive disproportionate media attention compared to their statistical frequency. This fascination can be psychologically problematic for those directly affected, as they must watch their personal tragedy become the subject of public speculation and entertainment. Documentary producers, podcast hosts, and true crime enthusiasts may contact families years after a disappearance, forcing them to relive their trauma for public consumption. While some families appreciate the continued attention to their loved one's case, others find the ongoing media interest to be re-traumatizing and intrusive. Repeated stories of unexplained cruise ship disappearances contribute to a broader cultural narrative of fear and mistrust regarding maritime travel. This cultural shift can have significant economic and social implications, affecting not only the cruise industry but also broader attitudes toward adventure travel and risk-taking in general. The psychological impact of this cultural fear extends to influence parental attitudes toward their children's travel plans, relationship dynamics when partners have different risk tolerances, and even retirement planning for those who had dreamed of cruise travel in their later years. Investigators and families affected by cruise ship disappearances often find themselves grappling with disturbing patterns that emerge when multiple cases are examined collectively. These patterns raise profound questions about whether these incidents are truly random or if there are underlying factors that make certain individuals more vulnerable to disappearing at sea. The demographic data surrounding cruise ship disappearances reveals troubling trends that demand deeper investigation. Young adults, particularly those traveling alone or in small groups, appear to be disproportionately represented among the missing. This raises questions about whether predatory behavior, mental health crises, or risk-taking behaviors contribute to these disappearances in ways that current security measures fail to address. The timing and location of disappearances also reveal patterns that suggest systematic vulnerabilities in cruise ship operations. Many disappearances occur during the early morning hours when most passengers are asleep and crew supervision is at its minimum. The prevalence of disappearances from balcony cabins raises questions about whether these accommodations, marketed as premium amenities, actually create dangerous situations that the industry has failed to adequately address. Families of missing cruise passengers often describe their frustration with investigations that seem to end before they truly begin. The jurisdictional complexities of maritime law, combined with the challenging logistics of investigating crimes at sea, frequently result in cases that are closed without resolution, leaving families with more questions than answers. The emotional impact of these incomplete investigations extends far beyond the immediate family members. Friends, fellow passengers, and even crew members who were present during the disappearance often feel a sense of injustice when investigations fail to provide closure. This collective frustration fuels a growing movement demanding accountability and transparency from both cruise lines and investigative authorities. The psychological burden of living with unanswered questions can be overwhelming. Families describe feeling trapped between hope and despair, unable to properly grieve because they don't know what happened to their loved one. This emotional limbo can persist for years, affecting relationships, mental health, and the ability to move forward with life. The security systems currently in place on most cruise ships were designed for a different era, when the primary concerns were traditional crimes like theft or assault rather than the complex scenarios that lead to passenger disappearances. Many ships still rely on security measures that are reactive rather than proactive, responding to incidents after they occur rather than preventing them from happening in the first place. The sheer size and complexity of modern cruise ships create inherent security challenges that existing systems struggle to address. With thousands of passengers and crew members aboard, monitoring every individual's movements and ensuring their safety requires resources and technology that many cruise lines have been reluctant to invest in, viewing such measures as potentially intrusive or cost-prohibitive. The international nature of cruise travel adds another layer of complexity to security considerations. Ships often sail in international waters where jurisdictional authority is unclear, and they visit ports with varying security standards and capabilities. This patchwork of regulatory oversight creates gaps that may be exploited by those with malicious intent or may simply result in inconsistent safety protocols. The rapid advancement of technology offers unprecedented opportunities to enhance cruise ship security and potentially prevent future disappearances. Sophisticated surveillance systems, including advanced camera networks with facial recognition capabilities, could provide comprehensive monitoring of passenger movements throughout the ship. Wearable technology and smartphone applications could enable real-time tracking of passengers, allowing for immediate alerts if someone ventures into restricted areas or fails to check in at expected intervals. While privacy concerns must be carefully balanced against security needs, many families affected by disappearances have expressed willingness to sacrifice some privacy for increased safety. Artificial intelligence and machine learning systems could analyze passenger behavior patterns to identify individuals who may be at risk of self-harm or who may be exhibiting concerning behaviors that could indicate intent to harm others. These systems could alert security personnel to intervene before a tragedy occurs, potentially saving lives and preventing the trauma associated with unexplained disappearances. The journey toward understanding and preventing cruise ship disappearances is far from over. But the path forward is becoming clearer through the combined efforts of families, investigators, technology innovators and industry leaders who refuse to accept these mysteries as unsolvable puzzles. The questions that remain unanswered today are driving the development of solutions that could transform maritime safety and investigation procedures for generations to come. The emotional toll of unexplained disappearances extends far beyond the immediate tragedy, creating ripple effects that touch countless lives and challenge our fundamental assumptions about safety, security, and the ability to protect those we love. However, this same emotional impact has also become a powerful force for change, inspiring innovation, advocacy, and collaboration that might not have occurred otherwise. The technological solutions that are emerging offer unprecedented capabilities for monitoring, prevention, and investigation that could finally provide the answers that families have been seeking for years. The integration of artificial intelligence, advanced surveillance systems, and collaborative platforms represents a paradigm shift in how we approach maritime security and investigation. The evolution of legal and regulatory frameworks is gradually catching up with the realities of modern cruise travel, creating the foundation for more effective prevention and investigation effort. The development of international cooperation and standardization initiatives provides hope for addressing the jurisdictional complexities that have historically hindered investigation efforts. Perhaps most importantly, the human element of these cases, the families who refuse to give up, the investigators who continue searching for answers, and the advocates who work tirelessly for change, provides the moral imperative and emotional energy needed to drive continued progress towards solution. The ocean may always hold some secrets, but the determination to find answers and prevent future tragedies ensures that the search will continue. The combination of advancing technology, evolving legal frameworks, improved collaboration, and unwavering human commitment creates genuine hope that the mysteries of cruise ship disappearances may finally be solved, and that future generations of travelers will be able to enjoy the wonder of ocean voyages without the shadow of unexplained tragedy. The unanswered questions that haunt us today are becoming the catalyst for solutions that could transform maritime travel tomorrow. In honoring those who have disappeared and supporting those who continue to search for answers, we are building a safer future for all who venture out upon the endless blue horizon of possibility and adventure that the ocean represents. Through continued innovation, collaboration, and unwavering commitment to truth and justice, we move ever closer to a future where no family will have to endure the anguish of unanswered questions about a loved one's disappearance at sea. The promise of that future makes every effort worthwhile and every question asked a step toward the answers we all seek.